If you'd told me last week that I'd be stuck overnight in a snowed-in train station with 5 complete strangers, and that it would be one of the most fascinating nights of my life, I would have laughed. I'm not exactly the strike-up-a-conversation with strangers type. I'm more of a headphones in, eyes on the floor commuter. But what happened that night changed the way I look at people. It was supposed to be a simple trip. I live in Chicago, and I was headed to Minneapolis to visit my sister for her birthday. I'd packed a small duffel bag, bought my train ticket, and brought along a mystery novel to make the 7-hour ride fly by. The first half of the journey was uneventful. The train hummed steadily, snowflakes tapping softly against the windows as we moved north. But by the time we reached Milwaukee, the snow was no longer gentle. It was a full-on blizzard. The conductor made an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, due to severe weather conditions, all train services north of Milwaukee are suspended until further notice. We'll be staying here overnight. The station is open, heated, and we'll have some basic refreshments available. I remember groaning quietly. Sleeping in a train station? Not exactly my idea of a cozy Friday night. I texted my sister the bad news, then joined the slow shuffle of passengers heading inside. The Milwaukee station was warm but crowded. Some passengers booked hotels nearby, but the snow was piling fast, and cabs weren't running. I figured I might as well stake out a corner with my duffel and ride it out. That's when I noticed 5 people who would become my accidental companions. Daniel, a college student from Madison with an acoustic guitar strapped to his back. Maya, a nurse from Chicago, still in her scrubs, sipping coffee like it was oxygen. Frank, a retired history teacher from Green Bay, with a weathered face and a voice like an old radio host. Sophie, a bakery owner from Minneapolis, carrying a box of unsold pastries she'd planned to bring home. And Leo, a quiet man in his 30s with a sketchbook, who seemed to be drawing everything around him. At first, we were just 6 people sharing the same patch of carpet. But as the night went on, that changed. It started with the pastries. Sophie opened her box and offered them around. They're gonna go stale by morning. Might as well share. Daniel strummed a few chords on his guitar. Maya asked if he knew any holiday songs. Within minutes, we had a soft, slightly off-key rendition of Winter Wonderland, drifting through the station. Frank chuckled and told us about the time he'd been snowed in at an airport in 1983, and ended up playing cards with a group of strangers until 4 a.m. Leo stayed quiet, but I noticed his pencil moving quickly across the page, sketching Daniel, the guitar, the pastries. As the hours passed, we fell into an unspoken rhythm. Someone would share a story, someone else would respond with their own. Maya told us about working double shifts during a Chicago heatwave, how she'd once saved a patient's life with nothing but quick thinking and a pair of gloves. Frank recounted teaching history during the Berlin Wall's fall, and how he'd shown his students the live news coverage. Sophie spoke about running a bakery that was on the brink during the pandemic, and how a viral Instagram post had saved it. Daniel admitted he was skipping a big college party to visit his mom, who'd just gone through surgery. Leo finally spoke, explaining that he was an illustrator for children's books. He'd been in Milwaukee for a book signing. It was strange. In a world where everyone scrolls past each other's lives online, here we were, strangers telling each other things we might not even tell friends. Around midnight, the station lights dimmed slightly. Most passengers were curled up in chairs or on the floor, trying to sleep. But our little group was still awake. Daniel played a slow, gentle tune. Sophie passed around the last 2 pastries. Frank pulled out a flask, for medicinal purposes, and poured a splash into tiny paper cups. For a few minutes, no one spoke. We just listened to the music, the wind howling outside, and the occasional crackle of the station's old heater. I remember thinking, if someone took a photo of us right now, no one would believe we'd met just hours ago. The night deepened, and conversations grew quieter. At one point, Maya leaned over and said, "It's funny, I see hundreds of faces a day at work, but I can't remember the last time I actually learned about a stranger's life." That stuck with me. We were all different ages, from different places, with different reasons for being here. But the snow had forced us into the same pause. And in that pause, we'd found something rare, undistracted attention. By 6 a.m., the blizzard had eased. The trains were running again. We gathered our bags, exchanging sleepy smiles. Before boarding, Leo handed each of us a small sketch he'd drawn during the night, moments he'd captured. Maya laughing over a coffee cup, Frank leaning in mid-story, Sophie holding a pastry like a peace offering, Daniel lost in his guitar, and me, listening with my chin in my hand. We hugged goodbye, promising to stay in touch, knowing we probably wouldn't. And maybe that was okay. Not every connection has to be permanent to be meaningful. As my train rolled toward Minneapolis, I realized something. We all spend so much time waiting for the right people to enter our lives. The friends we'll keep forever, the coworkers we'll bond with, the partner we'll share everything with, that we forget the magic of temporary people. Those 5 strangers reminded me that even brief connections can leave a lasting mark. That sometimes the most interesting nights happen when your plans completely fall apart. So yeah, I spent the night with 5 strangers. And it was interesting. Not because anything dramatic happened, but because in a noisy, distracted world, we all stopped long enough to really see each other. And I think that's something worth missing a night's sleep for.